Sharam Namdarian here, lazy day, Sharam Namdarian, recording a video from my computer rather than from my camera. In this video, we're going to be talking about the emotional healing journey when it comes to relationships. More specifically, a lot of particular hang-ups that people might have when it comes to dating, starting new relationships, and the general pathway that I find to be, how do I put this into words, the most powerful way of reorganizing, reevaluating, and creating new or existing relationships. Now, although I do have an online course about this coming soon, if you do, or if you're a fan of my content, or if you know already, I often talk about the idea of emotional healing, and more specifically the concept of emotional surrender. That is, to heal our reactions to things as a method of actualization. So basically, in a nutshell, self-actualization through healing, or success through surrender, which is my little cheesy way of saying it. A lot of hang-ups that people might have when it comes to relationships, or more specifically dating, creating new things, they're usually one-sided. They're like, I'm doing this, my partner is not doing this. They might say, like, for example, new relationships. I'm the one texting, the person does not text. Or I'm the one organizing the dates, they do not do this. Or why do I always do this? They are not always doing that. And the truth be told, situations like this end up being what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy is very simple. It is, I believe that this is happening. I therefore look for examples about how this is happening, thus reaffirming that behavior. And I say this time and time again because, for example, that text messaging example, the example of I always text and I get nothing in response, or I'm trying to organize everything. Why do I have to always fucking organize it? I read the comments. I read your emails. I fucking know what's going on. But what ends up happening is, think of it like, I always like the look of it, like to explain this almost like climbing Mount Everest or climbing a mountain. You know, if you're at the bottom of the mountain, your fucking perspective is going to be clogged. You're not going to be able to see much. It's all trees. You can look up at the mountain and be like, oh, that would be good. But at the bottom of the mountain, you're stuck. As you climb the mountain, and this mountain is healing, relationships, recognizing what's going on, learning things. As you climb that mountain, your perspective shifts. You start to see things differently. You can still see the trees, but you can still see what's going on around it. So that's my job as a coach, right? I'm high at the mountain and I'm asking you to come up with me. What ends up happening, I find, when people specifically focus on healing, for example, around relationships, is they start to reorganize and reorientate their relationships. Maybe they go out of negative relationships. Maybe they become more climatized and easier at creating new relationships. On the example of, oh, but I'm always texting. If someone is completely fine, they've healed their relationship when it comes to texting, what ends up happening is they just don't give a shit. They're like, all right, I'm going to be the one who texts. That's fine. Eventually, you might text. And so they become the kind of person that the other person then wants to text back. I like to think of this stuff like pulling punches, you know, where we're like, I want to see if you're going to text me, so I'm going to wait and look. I'm going to essentially hesitate and not fully be me in the relationship. So they're not texting you. They're not texting the version of you that wants them to text back. It's really interesting. And this stuff is applicable to everything. It's applicable to like how we connect with other people. It's connected to just fucking how we look at our health. That's why I teach also healing as its own thing, because it's like when you learn and understand healing, and I do have an online course about this coming soon called Introduction to Surrender, where we'll be talking the ins and outs and do's and don'ts of the surrender process. But it's just fucking worth recognizing that these self-fulfilling prophecies exist. I often, in the past, in these videos, I will refer to them as lenses. The lenses in which we view our relationship. That is, we look at it in a certain light, and therefore we collect consistent and persistent examples of that. Some people might call that reference experiences. It's the lenses in which we view it is just as important as the reference experience. And more specifically, the emotional foundation in which those lenses are built upon. For example, I've said this in the past, someone once asked me, like, what's the fucking thing that you would describe in relationships? Like, what's the big issue? And I'm like, hey, most people are just grieving. They are grieving. And so therefore, in a beautiful, synchronistic way, life brings you more situations to grieve. Now, sure, and I always say this, little asterisk, shit happens. Shit happens. But I think what's more interesting is the situations that we persistently get stuck in, and more specifically, the situations that we obsess about, the situations that we choose to use as examples, and the situations that we consistently and persistently tell ourselves that, look, here's another reason why things don't work. You know, it's these beliefs. I've said this in another course, Unlock Your Desires. We got actions created by thoughts created by feelings. Am I getting this right? Actions, thoughts, feelings. Yeah, essentially something like that. I said it really well on the thing. I'll introduce it to you, do the course, whatever. But so we've got our actions based on our thoughts. So an action might be, in this video we're using the lens of relationships, right? The action might be text that person. I want to text them. But if that's based on a thought, right? If that's based on a thought, one or two different thoughts can actually have completely divergent situations. So for example, one might be, okay, cool. It doesn't matter if they reply. I just love sharing. Who gives a shit? I know I'm attractive. I don't need them to validate me. Whoop-de-doo. Versus, I hope they fucking reply. I really liked them. I wanted this to work out. Why haven't they liked me? And so the action is the same. Or is it? It's the two diverging paths, the two different thoughts actually ultimately color and influence the text message, which is essentially the same action, although with a different energy, with a different text words, with a different connotations, different suggested things. And sure, the person on the other end might be oblivious, but most people, I would say, like, people are oblivious, but they're also not oblivious. Like, I say people are oblivious because I get people being like, I don't know what I'm freaking doing. And my job is to show them that they do know, because I'm changing the lens. If the actions are based on thoughts, and the thoughts are based on feelings, and the feelings are the foundations of the thoughts, well, what's the feeling? The feeling, for example, with the first one, I'm carefree. I love myself. I know I'm valued. And often these feelings, like, we can put words to them, but it doesn't matter if we do, because there's a lightness to it. There's a freedom to it. There's an acceptance. And ironically, because there is an acceptance, the other person accepts and feels accepted. So their response is accepted. So they are, how do I put this into words? Like, they know that they are safe around you. So they are safe to say no, but they are also safe to say yes. On the other hand, what's the other feeling of that other example? Frustration, pain, unresolved grief, anger, all of these other things. So what ends up happening? That person feels that energy. It's translated. So what does that mean? That's the feelings are translated into our thoughts and then translated into our words, and then they perceive that, or our actions. All right? So therefore, what this person does is they perceive that text message, and they can perceive that darkness. And so in the first example, it was like, oh, they are safe to say yes, and they are safe to say no. Well, in this case, they're not safe to say yes, they're not safe to say no, because it's going to be scrutinized, it's going to be agonized. Not saying this is how you are, but this is just an example. And so what do? They fucking disappear. They ghost. They don't know what to say, so they don't do anything. So it's interesting because we start then at least here I am suggesting that this is the method and the method in which I love to teach and the method in which I fucking live and breathe. But we start to realize that if all of these stuff is based on feelings, then we've got to focus on feelings. We focus on the unresolved feelings that we have. We therefore learn and surrender. Now, life can make you surrender without even trying. You know, someone going through a string of bad relationships might finally surrender to the fact that they hate bad relationships, or they hate being taken for granted, or they hate feeling a certain way. So they finally stop fucking suppressing that feeling, and they finally let themselves be themselves. They stop holding back. So the next person that comes along their way and comes to them and offers them the same bullshit relationship on a platter, because you've resolved that, you've done it. You've done it. You've been there. You've done that. They're like, no, thank you. It's not a big issue. It's not a big deal. Whatever. For example, in my own life, I've processed a lot of anger. So someone comes to me with an anger relationship, I'm like, no, thank you. And it's so easy. It's so effortless. This applies to all relationships. This applies to every fucking aspect of your life. The powerful and deep fucking understanding of healing. Once your body knows how to heal, it starts to heal. It becomes this automatic, brilliant process. I watch my clients. I watch people unfurl and unravel and to be the fucking flower that they were meant to be. So what do? We process, we surrender. We try and feel the emotion without trying to change it, without trying to modify it. You can systematically, you know, they like, you read the book, Think Rich, Think and Grow Rich. And they're like, lesson 1, don't give away the golden goose. I'm like, here's my fucking golden goose. Easy to learn, hard to master, and I'm here along the way making sure you're on the right path. That's why we have these videos. That's why you watch me, because you're not only learning this, you're not only appreciating this, you're not only that, but you're watching me use this more than anyone you fucking will know as an example of this. It's so amazing to watch someone reorientate their entire relationships to be something healing once they learn how to surrender. They surrender their blocks. They surrender their anxiety. They surrender their fear. Scores and lifelongs of just pain and issue and whatever they've fucking gone through starts to just unravel. And they start to just know. Like, it's like, I always say to people, it's like, I believe most of the time we know. And if we don't know, we know we have to learn. And I say this and I talk about this because, like, a lot of the people that will come to me, they're like, I don't know shit. And then I talk to them and they do. They're just not ready to admit to themselves that they are. In fact, that's as another video topic I wanted to talk about, was the idea that sometimes we'll make things harder for ourselves because easy is uncomfortable. We haven't worked for it enough. And that itself comes from unresolved feelings. For example, I'm currently in a process of surrendering my issues around weight loss, weight gain, weight. Wait for it, guys. And I've talked a lot about this, but I also haven't, because I've really been keeping a lot of it close to chest, because what I do is I walk the path, then I share it. And it's interesting because it's like I will be surrendering weight loss, and I had, oh my God, a lifetime of grief to get through. A lifetime of grief. Like a grief about weight loss. Oh, I can't lose weight. I've tried. I've failed. I pretty much had a history of my almost eating disorders. Some people might say I have. I necessarily wouldn't. I don't know yet. But what essentially happens is, through the healing process, you're almost reliving in some cases, not all cases, you're going to be reliving the emotion that was the painful emotion in order to switch from one lane to the other lane. Remember how we talked about those two situations? Think of them as lanes of existence, dimensions of existence. I used to call it, in my early days of being a dating coach, I used to call it, dimensions, dimensional shift. Because there is a dimensional shift. It's like people living in one dimension, people living in another dimension. They all know. It's like sports in Australia. This is the funny thing. It's like sports in Australia. There's people who like sports, and there's people who don't, and those two people don't fucking mix. They do, but it's really funny to see that sometimes it's like there's a dimension. There's a dimension. I know this as someone who's not a sports person. I'm not a massive sports person. My sport is business and healing and Warhammer. But that's the story for another time. So we're talking about dimensional shifts, healing. Oh yeah, weight. So it's like, even for example with my own weight, right? I'm surrendering a lifetime of feeling like, oh, I can't lose weight. Every time I try, it fails. Oh, like hardcore pain. Last night, it finally hit me. I finally processed that grief, and now I'm on to the next thing. Feels like I can't lose weight enough. Enough. If you're a fan of my videos, you've heard me use this word before. Enough. Like in the past, I talked about being loved and being loved enough. The enough is extraordinarily interesting. Because if it's not enough, we never count it. And if we never count it, we never let that experience come to us. For example, with my weight. Oh, I tried to lose weight, but I've never lost enough weight. So I never let myself. My lens was it's never enough. I could lose 1 kilo. I could lose 100 kilos. I would still find a way to show you that it wasn't enough. But now I've healed that aspect of myself. I'm now letting myself, and it's still early days, but this is what it feels like, letting myself collect those experiences. And so back to relationships for a second. What's the measure of a relationship? Some people might say time. Oh, it didn't last forever. Oh, it did last forever. It was a good thing. Says who? Says society or says you? What is the measure of a relationship? Whatever the fuck you want. It's whatever the fuck you want it to be. If you want it to be time, let it to be time. If you want it to be unapologetic, unrestrained love and fucking passion, that's up to you as well. But to then see that sometimes we can think and feel that we have not been loved enough. We develop these lenses. It's not that we weren't loved, but we weren't loved enough. It wasn't the measurement that I counted as. It wasn't, it was a weak relationship. That doesn't count. They did not love me enough. So what do? Actions based on thoughts, based on feelings. The feelings is no one can love me enough, or that person didn't love me enough, or I have just not received enough love. And that can come from a lack of love. That can come from a lack of love in childhood. That can just come from a lack of fucking love. We don't need to justify when or how. When upon you have truly processed the emotion, sometimes you'll know. The feeling, I am not loved enough. The thoughts, I am not loved enough. The action in relationships. Someone says they love you and you go, well, that's not enough. You have to love me. You have to like me. It's against your will. So we collect these experiences based on the lenses that exist. Based on the fucking lenses that exist. So thank you so much for watching this video. I completely lost track of what the video was about. The lenses, the things. I hope to God that the video title matches the actual video content. If you do have an idea of what the video title should be, let me know. And I think that would be funny. I might not take you up on the thing, but I would love to see what you think. And so thank you so much for watching this video. Vote for this video with your likes. Leave a like if you did. Don't if you don't. And I'll see you soon.